Chapter 18. The Sovereign Descends. The sky did not glow, it did not crack, it did not tremble, it went silent. Birds froze mid-flight, wind stopped, even dust hung motionless in the air. Zoro blinked. Weird. The saint's expression changed immediately, not fear, recognition. They are sending something higher than law enforcement. Zoro scratched his ear. Higher than shiny spear guys? Yes. Annoying. A single ripple formed in the center of the sky, small, barely noticeable, like a pebble dropped into still water. The ripple widened gently, and someone stepped through. Not armored, not glowing, no dramatic aura. Just a tall figure in dark robes, hands folded behind his back. Black hair. Calm eyes. He looked human. He stood in the air casually, as if gravity were optional. The entire realm bent slightly toward him. Not forced. Inclined. Zoro looked up. You don't look expensive. The saint inhaled sharply. That is worse. The figure's gaze settled on Zoro, measured, curious. No anger, no pride, just evaluation. You are the anomaly, Zoro pointed at himself. Me? Yes. You sure? The man tilted his head slightly. You cut the ascension gate. It was blocking the sky. You severed a legion array. They were noisy. The man nodded once. Understood. Zoro blinked. That's it? I am Sovereign Envoy Kale. That long? Silence. The saint stepped forward cautiously. You are not an envoy. Kale's eyes shifted briefly to her. I am what remains when envoys fail. The air tightened. Zoro rolled his shoulders. So you fight? Kale looked back at him, if necessary. Feels necessary. Kale extended one hand slightly. The realm dimmed. Not dark, muted. Color drained from the world around them, sound dulled. Even the saint's golden aura flickered uncertainly. Zoro looked at his hand. Eh? His fingers moved slower, not physically restrained, conceptually slowed. Kale spoke calmly. I am not here to overpower you. Good. I am here to define you. Zoro frowned. Define? Kale stepped forward in the air. Each step caused a ripple across the world. You do not cultivate. No, you do not ascend. No, you do not integrate law. You cut. Zoro nodded. Yeah. Kale's eyes sharpened slightly. That is the issue. The storm core inside Zoro pulsed. Not violently. Curious. Kale lifted one finger. That's a thin silver thread extended from it. Almost invisible. It connected to Zoro's chest. The mark flared. Zoro grabbed the thread instinctively. Oi. The moment his fingers touched it, the world changed. Everything vanished. No mountain, no sky, no saint. Just white. Infinite white space. Zoro stood alone. Kale stood across from him. This is not illusion, Kale said calmly. Feels empty. This is predefinition. Huh. Kale gestured slightly. Behind Zoro, a shadow formed. Then another. Then many. Thousands of silhouettes, all holding blades, all different. This is potential. Zoro turned slowly. They mine? They are versions. Of? You. Each silhouette represented a path. Sword Saint, Blade Tyrant, Storm Immortal, Asura King, Heaven Splitter, every possible cultivated evolution. Kale's voice remained steady. You refuse all paths. Zoro scratched his cheek. Didn't see signs. That is not how destiny works. Sounds complicated. It is structured, Zoro sighed. You talk too much. Kale's eyes narrowed slightly. I will assign you one. The silhouettes began collapsing inward, fusing, forming a single towering version of Zoro, clad in divine armor, crowned in stormlight, eyes glowing silver, a perfected blade immortal. Kale gestured toward it. This is acceptable. Zoro stared at the shining version of himself. Too shiny. It is stability. Looks heavy. It is transcendence. Zoro cracked his neck. Don't like it. Kale's tone did not change. You do not need to like it. The perfected silhouette stepped forward to merge with him. Zoro lifted his blade. Wrong direction. He swung. Not at Kale. Not at the white space. At the shining perfected version of himself. The blade cut cleanly through it. The silhouette split in half, then shattered into nothing. Silence filled the white space. Kale stared at the empty fragments. For the first time, his calm shifted. Slightly. You reject refinement. Zoro rested the blade on his shoulder. I'm already me. The storm core pulsed strongly now. Not expanding. Settled. Defined by rejection. The white space began cracking, thin black lines spreading outward from where Zoro stood. Kale looked down at them. You are cutting predefinition. Feels like paper. The cracks spread faster. The infinite white fractured like porcelain. Kale stepped back for the first time. You cannot sever structure itself. Zoro blinked. Watch. He swung again. The white dimension shattered completely. Reality snapped back violently. The mountain returned. The sky returned. The saint gasped as Zoro reappeared exactly where he had been, blade mid-swing. Kale staggered backward slightly in the air. A thin cut appeared across his sleeve, not deep, but real. He looked at it quietly. You cut the sovereign domain. Zoro squinted upward. That important? Kale was silent for several long seconds. Then he lowered his hand. The realm's color returned fully. Time resumed. Wind moved again. You cannot be assigned. Good. You cannot be defined. Good. You cannot be predicted. Yeah. Kale's gaze hardened, not in anger, in realization. You are not an anomaly. Zoro tilted his head. Then, Kale looked at him steadily. You are a fracture. The mark on Zoro's chest pulsed once, then changed shape slightly. Sharper edges, cleaner lines. Kale turned slightly toward the sky. The upper sovereigns will not tolerate fracture. Zoro sheathed his blade. They can try. Kale looked back at him one last time. There was no hostility in his expression, only assessment. I will report that force is ineffective. Okay. They will send something else. Stronger? Yes. Zoro grinned slightly. Good. Kale stepped backward. A thin ripple opened behind him. Before stepping through, he spoke once more. Next time, you will not be tested. The ripple closed. The sky remained intact. Silence lingered. The saint exhaled slowly. You cut the sovereign's domain. Zoro looked around. So? She stared at him. That space existed before realms formed. Felt empty. She stepped closer. You are not climbing cultivation. No. You are carving it, Zoro scratched his head. Is that bad? The saint looked at the sky. Far above, something vast was stirring again. It depends who notices. Zoro turned, walked confidently, immediately chose the wrong direction and headed toward the collapsed defensive wall instead of the kitchens. Food this way? The saint closed her eyes briefly. The storm core inside him beat once more. Steady, sharp, and somewhere beyond the upper realm, something older than sovereigns shifted in its sleep. Chapter 19, Something Older Than Heaven. The sky stayed blue. That was the problem. Too calm, too quiet. Zoro sat on a broken pillar chewing something suspiciously crunchy again, still salty. The saint stood beside him, eyes fixed upward. She had not relaxed since Kale left. You felt it, Zoro swallowed. Felt what? The pause. I was eating. No, she pointed upward. The upper realm stopped moving. That was true. Normally, even unseen, there was pressure, flow. Watching intent. Now, nothing. Zoro frowned slightly. They give up? The saint's expression darkened. No. The air shifted. Not heavy, not bright. Cold. Like the world itself inhaled and refused to exhale. Every disciple froze mid-motion. Not paralyzed. Paused. Wind stopped again, but this time even light dimmed slightly, like the sun had stepped backward. Zoro stood slowly. This different. Yes, this was not upper realm law. It was older. The sky did not open. It peeled, like a thin layer of paint being lifted away. Behind it, there was no grand architecture, no golden light, only vast darkness, and something enormous moving within it. Not stepping through, just pressing close enough to be seen. The saint's voice barely escaped her throat. That is not sovereign. Zoro narrowed his eyes. Too big. Two shapes formed in the darkness. Not eyes, just deeper void within void, looking down. No speech followed, no declaration, just presence. The storm core inside Zoro reacted violently for the first time in a while. Not expanding. Not sharpening. Straining. Like metal bending. He grabbed his chest. Oi. The mark flared painfully. Black lightning leaked from beneath his skin, thinner than ever before, razor-fine strands slicing the air unintentionally. The darkness above pulsed once. The entire realm cracked. Mountains split with no impact. Rivers parted mid-flow. The saint dropped to one knee instantly. This predates ascension. Zoro exhaled slowly. So? The darkness shifted again, and a voice came, not sound, not law. Memory. It felt like remembering something that never happened. Fracture. Zoro blinked. Stop calling me that. The darkness moved closer. Reality around the sect thinned, like paper soaked in water. Zoro stepped forward. The ground beneath him cracked, not from pressure, from incompatibility. He did not belong in this level of presence. He stayed anyway. The saint looked at him sharply. You cannot fight that. Didn't try yet. It is not a being, everything something. The darkness rippled. A massive outline pressed faintly against the peeled sky. Not a hand, not a figure, a shape too large to define. The storm core beat harder. Then it stabilized. Compressed, not resisting outward, resisting inward. Zoro exhaled. Annoying. He drew one blade, not all three, just one. Wado Ichimonji gleamed softly, no flashy aura, no explosive lightning, just a thin black edge. The saint stared. You cannot cut something without edge. Zoro glanced at her. Everything got edge. The darkness pulsed again. This time the peeled sky began lowering, like a lid closing downward to erase the realm beneath it. Disciples screamed as parts of the horizon simply disappeared. Zoro stepped forward, and immediately tripped on cracked stone. He fell forward awkwardly. The saint gasped, but mid-fall, his blade swung upward unintentionally. The thin black edge traced across the descending sky. Silence. The peeled layer stopped. A line formed. The darkness beyond it paused. Zoro landed face first. Ch! He stood up, rubbing his nose. The thin black line remained across the sky. The darkness did not advance further. It was not cut open. It was held. The presence beyond shifted slightly. Not injured. Acknowledging. The memory voice returned. You divide. Zoro squinted upward. Yeah. You separate what should be whole. If it in my way. The darkness rippled again. The pressure increased, but differently. Not crushing. Testing. The line Zoro accidentally carved began thinning. The sky tried to reseal. He clicked his tongue. Don't close. He stepped forward again, this time carefully, raised the blade, and deliberately retraced the line. The black edge deepened. The peeled sky split slightly wider, but only where he allowed. The saint felt it immediately. He is not cutting it apart. He was controlling the boundary, dividing without destroying. The darkness stilled. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then slowly, the peeled sky began lifting back upward. Not forced, retreating. The void beyond dimmed. The memory voice faded like an echo sinking underwater. Unfinished. The sky sealed. Wind returned abruptly. Color flooded back into the world. Mountains stopped cracking. Rivers resumed flowing. Disciples collapsed in shock. Zoro stood there staring upward. Weird. The storm core inside him felt different. Not sharper. Not heavier. Deeper. Like something had noticed him properly for the first time. The saint rose slowly. Her hands trembled slightly. That was before sovereigns. Older? Yes. Stronger? She hesitated. It is not about strength. Zoro sheathed his blade. Then fine. She stepped closer, studying him carefully. You did not sever it. No, you divided it. Yeah. You stopped it from closing the realm. It was in the way. She stared at him for a long moment. You are not breaking cultivation. Zoro blinked. No? You are teaching it separation. Don't know that guy. She almost smiled despite herself. Far above, beyond upper realm, beyond sovereigns. In the deeper dark between structured existence, something vast shifted slightly. Not hostile, not pleased, curious. Back below, Zoro turned confidently. Walked straight toward what looked like a hallway. It was actually the collapsed remains of a defensive trench. He fell in immediately. Shh! From inside the trench. Kitchen? The saint closed her eyes briefly. The storm core pulsed once, steady. And far beyond heaven, something ancient remained awake. Chapter 20. The world begins to tilt. The sky stayed intact. That made everyone nervous. 3 days passed without invasion. No golden spears, no sovereign envoys, no peeling darkness, just wind, birds. Reconstruction. Zoro was bored. He stood on a half-repaired rooftop, staring at the horizon. Too quiet. Below, disciples trained with renewed desperation. Every strike louder, every technique sharper. They had seen heaven invaded. They had seen something older look down. They had seen Zoro cut both. Faith was confused. Fear was permanent. The saint approached calmly. You feel it too. World crooked. She nodded. The realm was subtly off balance. Mountains leaned slightly where they had not before. Rivers curved unnaturally. The stars at night were misaligned by a fraction. Tiny shifts. But real. You divided something fundamental, she said quietly. Zoro scratched his jaw. Didn't break it. No, that's good. She looked at him carefully. You did not break it, but now it cannot close cleanly. Sounds like their problem. A distant tremor rolled across the land. Not violent, deep, like something turning in its sleep beneath the earth. Zoro looked down. That knew. The ground cracked, not outward, inward. A thin black line formed across the courtyard. The saint's eyes widened. That is not from above. The line spread slowly across the sect grounds like a scar reopening. Zoro crouched and touched it. It was cold. Not empty. Dense. Feels like me. The storm core pulsed in response. Not violently, in recognition. The black line widened slightly, just enough to form a narrow rift. Darkness flickered within. Not void like before. Not upper realm light. Something else. Footsteps echoed faintly from inside it. Zoro stood slowly. We got visitors underground now? The saint stepped back slightly. This realm is reacting to you. Why? You carved separation into its structure. Still their problem. The rift widened. A hand reached out, not massive, not divine, human-sized, calloused fingers, scarred knuckles. Zoro blinked. That familiar. A figure pulled itself out of the rift slowly. Green hair, 3 swords at the waist, scar over one eye. Identical posture, identical presence. The disciples screamed. Elder Han fainted instantly. Zoro stared. Oi! The other Zoro dusted off his shoulder casually. Took long enough. Silence swallowed the courtyard. The saint's voice trembled slightly. That is impossible. The second Zoro looked around lazily. Cultivator world, huh? He glanced at the saint. Not bad. Original Zoro frowned. Who are you? The other one smirked faintly. You cut the sky wrong. Huh? You didn't just divide above. He tapped his own chest. You divided possibility. The storm core pulsed sharply. The black rift behind the second Zoro flickered but did not close. The saint whispered softly. He separated himself across unrealized paths. The duplicate rolled his shoulders. Relax, I'm not illusion. Zoro narrowed his eye. Prove it. The duplicate vanished instantly. Reappeared behind him. Blade already mid-swing. Zoro reacted instantly. Steel clashed. Black lightning sparked. Shockwaves cracked the courtyard outward. They pushed off each other and slid back simultaneously. Same stance, same breathing, same weight shift. The disciples stared in disbelief. 2 identical killing intents filled the air. The duplicate grinned slightly. You heavier. Original Zoro snorted. You talk more. They vanished at the same time. Steel collided midair repeatedly, fast enough to blur. Each clash split air pressure. Each step shattered stone. The saint could barely track them. They moved without cultivation technique, without formation. Pure instinct mirrored against itself. The duplicate shifted stance suddenly. A variation Zoro hadn't used here yet. A diagonal cut layered with compressed internal force. Original Zoro blocked. Barely. He skidded backward. That mine. The duplicate shrugged. Was. They clashed again. This time both activated Asura simultaneously. 2 6-armed phantoms erupted behind them, identical. Black lightning tangled violently between the 2 manifestations. The storm core inside the original Zoro began destabilizing slightly. Not exploding, resonating. The saint realized it first. They are harmonizing! The black rift behind them widened further. Inside it, more silhouettes flickered. Other possibilities, other fragments. The duplicate jumped back. See, Zoro glared. See what? You cut separation into the world. He gestured to the rift. World separating back. The ground cracked further. A third silhouette flickered within the rift, but did not emerge. The duplicate looked upward briefly. If more of us walk out, this place won't hold. Zoro clicked his tongue. Annoying. He stepped forward again. Blade raised. Then I cut it closed. The duplicate's smirk widened slightly. Good answer. They charged at each other simultaneously, but at the last second, both turned. Both slashed toward the rift instead. Twin black arcs crossed in an X shape across the opening. The rift screamed. Not sound, structure. The silhouettes inside recoiled. The opening began collapsing inward violently. The duplicate stood beside him now instead of opposite. Careful. I know. They slashed again. This time perfectly synchronized. The black X deepened. The rift snapped shut violently like a sealed wound. Silence. Only one Zoro remained. The duplicate stood there for a moment longer. Fading. He looked at the original calmly. You're still the worst directionally. Shut up. The duplicate dissolved into drifting black threads, reabsorbed into the storm core. The courtyard stabilized. The ground stopped cracking. The saint exhaled slowly. You were fighting yourself. Zoro sheathed his blades. Annoying guy. She stepped closer. You understand what happened? No. You fractured possibility, and it tried to correct. I fixed it. For now. He looked at his hands. The storm core felt denser again, more complete. Not because he absorbed power, but because he refused division. He shrugged. If more come out, I cut again. The saint studied him quietly. You are not climbing toward heaven. No. You are forcing heaven to adjust around you. If it in my way. Wind moved softly through the broken courtyard. Far above, upper realm sovereigns felt the tremor. Far beyond them, the ancient darkness felt the sealed fracture. And far below, deep beneath the realm's roots, something began pushing upward. Zoro turned confidently, walked 3 steps, stopped, looked around. Kitchen? The saint pointed silently behind him. He turned, walked the opposite direction anyway.